monster fish. Probably one of the more popular fish-related YouTube searches here on the YouTube platform. I know that a lot of other large YouTubers are really into monster fish. And I get questions often from you guys, from viewers, asking me why I don't keep monster fish or giving me recommendations on fish that they think that I should keep. Today, I'm going to give you 5 reasons why it's really not in the cards for me. Hey fish friends, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. So when I'm talking about monster fish, we are talking about very large fish that people keep in aquariums. Sometimes they are probably fish that people really shouldn't be keeping at all, or it's for people that have very large systems that are able to accommodate these very large fish. Now, I know that I do have Oscar cichlids. I have a couple behind me. I've got one upstairs. And I know that in videos I've called them monster fish in the past, but they're kind of like borderline for me. They can go in monster fish tanks, so they can live with other monster fish. But I don't really consider them to be a real monster fish because most of them don't get much larger than a foot or so. They usually stay, 12 inches or less. I know that they do grow larger in captivity. Sometimes they'll get to be 12, 13, 14 inches, but that isn't very common. I've got one, I think it's probably around 10 or 11 inches. The other one's probably around 9 or 10 inches now. Same with upstairs. So they do get large. They are larger fish, but I don't really consider them to be monster fish in the same category as some of these other fish that we're going to talk about. Now, I do have another fish upstairs, which is weird to say, upstairs outside on the patio in a pond, and that is a koi fish. Koi fish also are very large, but you don't really see koi fish very often in aquariums, and when you do, it's really not appropriate. They are really pond fish, so we're going to exclude large pond fish for this conversation. So when I'm talking about monster fish, we are talking about large catfish, very large cichlids, arowana, things that are really not the fish that an everyday fish keeper should be keeping. So today I'm going to tell you why I don't personally keep them and get into some details. Now I do love, looking at other people's monster fish, so I don't want to make this all about a negative video about me not liking them. I do enjoy them. I like watching other people make videos about them and sharing their experiences with monster fish. It's just not a fish that I am really equipped to take care of. Even if I did make some changes, that's not really something that I do want to take care of, but I do enjoy seeing them with other people or when I go to public aquariums and stuff like that. So the first reason why I personally don't keep monster fish is tank size. Now I know that's very general and duh, right? Tank size, you need a big tank for a monster fish. But a lot of people will keep monster fish in tanks that are inappropriate. One of the reasons why I am making this video, besides a lot of you reaching out to me and asking me questions and stuff like that, is I was actually in a fish store not too long ago buying some supplies. I was buying some wood for this tank behind me. I was buying some rock for the peacock tank, some fish food, so a couple little, some items that I have to give to like my mud skippers. And there was someone shopping in there for some true monster fish. I overheard them. They said that they have a 55-gallon tank set up and that these monster fish that they're going to buy are going to go in the 55 while they're waiting for their 100-gallon tank to cycle. And then they're going to move them into the 100-gallon tank. Even the 100-gallon tank would have been too small for these fish that they were buying, but that's not my business, and it was not my place to speak up and say something. So I let it go, and I didn't, of course, want to impact the store and their sale. But this is, again, a fish that the person shouldn't have been buying, and not for that tank size. They would have needed like a 240-gallon tank or larger. So tank size was one of the reasons why I don't keep monster fish. Now, in order to keep a lot of these fish, if we're talking about, silver arowana, freshwater stingrays, peacock bass, red-tailed catfish, shovel-nosed catfish, a lot of these fish get 2 feet, 3 feet. They get huge, right? So a 3-foot fish is like this big, and that's not going to fit in a 125-gallon tank behind me. 125-gallon tank is 6 feet long. You have a 3-foot fish in there. It takes up half the tank lengthwise and would not even be able to turn around depth-wise because of the front to back depth. So really, tanks, in order to keep monster fish, you're going to need very large aquariums, 8-foot aquariums or larger, 240 gallons, 300 gallons, 400 gallons. I know some people have custom tanks set up, and that's fine. But if you're going to have a 125-gallon tank, a 90-gallon tank, you're really not equipped to have monster fish long term. Now, I very well could move things around and sell some tanks and put some very large aquariums down here. I am in the basement. We are on a concrete slab. I could, I built this wall so I could remove the wall and bring in a large 200 or 300 gallon aquarium. I could build an aquarium down here that's several hundred gallons, but then I would not be able to have the diversity that I have. I'd have one tank in here, a few tanks, but I would have a tank in here that takes up 8 to 10 feet with just a few large fish in there, and I wouldn't have the diversity. I wouldn't have the brackish fish, the Tanganyikan fish, the Malawi cichlids, the live bears, all the different things that I keep, because I would be stuck with just a large tank. So the next thing that one of the reasons why I don't want to have monster fish is because you don't have the ability to have a lot of diversity. Now, when I mention diversity, again, we're talking about being able to have lots of different types of fish. So I enjoy keeping rock-dwelling cichlids and my shell dwellers, my mud skippers, different things that require completely different environments. I like having fish that are not so common. And if I had monster fish tanks, I would be just stuck with an 8-foot or a 10-foot tank that was 300 gallons and just a few monster fish in there. Now, you could have some diverse monster fish. Yes, I understand that you could have a stingray in there and, maybe an arowana or something. But still, it's not the same as having all these little different ecosystems that I have down here. And that would be a real bummer to me. So that's another reason why I personally don't keep monster fish. The next reason, and these are not in order, I'm giving you 5 reasons. The next reason is a big one, and that's aggression and predation. Now, I do know that I do have some fish that are aggressive. I have aggressive mudskippers, I have aggressive puffers, I have aggressive cichlids, Malawi cichlids, Oscar cichlids, even my little shell dwellers. But most of them, excluding the Oscars, are small enough to where they don't do a lot of damage. I know that my peacocks could do some damage and they could kill a fish, but it doesn't happen very often, especially anymore now that I manage it a certain way. With larger fish, when you have a fish that's 18 inches, 24 inches, 36 inches, they can do a lot of damage to another fish. They can also do a lot of damage to an aquarium, breaking glass lids and things like that. We've seen those videos. I don't want to deal with that level of aggression, and I don't want to deal with the worry of predation, meaning that I wouldn't want to worry about my 2-foot fish eating a 10-inch fish that happened to be in the same tank together. Yes, that can happen with smaller fish. I have had small fish eat smaller fish, but again, it's easier to manage, especially when you have diversity and lots of different tanks. You can keep them separated. And it's just not something that I really want to deal with. It's a lot of headaches. I've talked to people that have kept monster fish, and again, it's not something that I personally want to tackle myself. That was weird. It's like my voice is cracking. It's like I'm going through puberty again, although that was like, I don't know, 30 plus years ago. So anyway, on to my next one. Oh, the next reason why I personally don't keep monster fish is feeding monster fish. Now, I have a lot of fish. We've established that, and I guess I could probably stop saying that. And I do feed them all, obviously. And I'm very fortunate the fact that I actually have a food sponsor that provides me with all of my fish foods for free. So Extreme Aquatic Foods provides me with all of my dry foods, my pellets, my flakes, my granules that I'm able to feed to the majority of my fish. I do have some frozen foods that I have to feed to some certain fish or some live foods. And I do live brine shrimp. But for the most part, they supply me with all of my dry foods to take care of the majority of my fish feeding needs. Now, if I did have monster fish, they do have some foods that would work, but that's a whole lot more food that I would have to purchase or ask for. And a lot of these monster fish are going to require things that are just beyond the natural pellet kind of a thing. So you'd have to, buy fresh fish from the market and cut up fresh fish and scallops and feed it to some of these fish. And again, that is something that I don't really want to hassle with. It does seem like a whole another level of work. There's definitely an expense there. Maybe for me, it's a little bit different of a situation where I would be able to, deflect that to a sponsor, but still, it's just not something that I really want to deal with. Now, that is a perfect segue, talking about food, into the next and final reason why I personally don't keep monster fish is monster fish make monster messes, meaning waste, maintenance, wrap it up all together. There's a lot of poop. There's a lot of stuff to deal with when you have very large fish. Now, even with my Oscars, which are, again, medium large, their waste is substantially more than my Malawi cichlid tank, as an example, because the fish is so large. I can look in there and see large droppings from the Oscars. Fortunately, I've got snails and stuff in there that will take care of it and break it down even further, where I don't have that in some of my other aquariums. So larger fish, larger waste, more waste as well, because you are dealing with a lot of body mass. And when you're dealing with a lot of body mass, obviously a lot of waste, meaning you're having to do more maintenance, more filter maintenance, more water changes. And you can't just also really get by with kind of the more basic filtration that a lot of us like. This whole room, this entire room is filtered on air, meaning that I have sponge filters filtering every aquarium. I do have a couple of aquariums down here with canister filters for a couple of reasons, but for the most part, they are all running sponge filters. That would really not be feasible if I had some very large cichlids or some very large monster fish in an aquarium. I guess it could be done if I had like 10 sponge filters, but that wouldn't look very aesthetically pleasing. So that's a big reason why I don't keep monster fish. So there you go, 5 reasons why I personally don't keep monster fish. I was also at this store, and when I was at that store, they had some arapaima. Arapima, I call them arapaima. They have some arapaima. If you're not familiar with arapaima, they are a beautiful fish. They are actually one of my favorite fish that I've personally seen. Definitely, like if I were Jeff Bezos and had billions of dollars, I might build a 10,000 gallon aquarium or something and have one in there. Maybe it had to be larger than that, maybe 30,000 gallons. But they are amazing, beautiful creatures. In fact, if you haven't seen them, I do have a video I'll link up here of me going to the public aquarium and filming some arapaima that were probably, the ones that I saw were probably 9 or 10 feet long around there. They get that big. They would be longer than from the floor to the ceiling here, much larger than I am. And they had some in this fish store that were probably, I don't know, 8-10 inches or so. Beautiful looking fish, but not a fish that you should be selling in a pet store to go home to somebody that has a 100-gallon tank or a 125 or a 180 or a 240. There's no way that an arapaima should be going in a 240-gallon aquarium. When they're full grown, they will be the same size as that 240-gallon aquarium. So there you have it. I love monster fish. I love looking at other people taking care of them in the right setting or a public aquarium, but it's not something that I am really interested in. So for those of you that message me, send me write comments, make recommendations, tag me on Instagram posts, it's probably not going to happen anytime soon. So anyway, if you keep monster fish, or if you do have an inkling or some kind of plan on getting them, I would love to read down below either how you keep them currently, what you consider monster fish, what are you going to keep in the future. I'd love to read it down below and see what everyone else is doing out there. So anyway, that's all I have for now. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.